In this video, I will be demonstrating the user interface controls available in Heirloom, which is a strings, woodwinds, piano and guitars library by Keaton Henson, captured in London's stunning Church Studios. Starting in the top left corner of the plugin window, you will find an LED. This will alternate between green and red when the plugin is loading, and will remain a constant green when fully loaded. To the right of this are the CPU and disk meters. These help to monitor the performance of your computer whilst using the plugin. Next along we have the memory view. This shows the amount of sample data that's being preloaded into RAM. Next we have voices. This shows how many streams of audio are being played at once. Alongside these different views we have a refresh button. Clicking on this will refresh the individual plugin instance, whilst Option or Alt clicking will refresh all loaded instances of the plugin in your project. This is useful for hanging or stuck notes in particular. Next are the reverb options. By default this is set to Dark Chamber, but this can be changed via the drop-down menu to the reverb type of your choosing. Next we have the MIDI channel selector. This defaults to any, but you can choose a specific channel for this plugin using the drop-down. Next are the tuning and panning controls, as well as the master volume control for the output of the plugin. Clicking on the ellipsis here brings up a menu to adjust further settings for this patch. The dynamics menu affects how hard the keyboard needs to be hit to change dynamic layers. By default this is set to full velocity range, but velocity mapped to dynamics, compressed velocity high, or compressed velocity low can also be selected here. Here you can also adjust the velocity response of the plugin. By default this is set to linear velocity, but can be changed to be shelved velocity, exponential negative, or exponential positive. You can reset or clear the CC mappings from this menu here, change the releases for shorts, and sync to tempo is also visible, but on permanently for this library. Next along we have the cogwheel, which houses the global settings for the plugin. In the General tab, you can copy the settings from this plugin in order for these to be applied to all other dedicated plugin Spitfire products. In the Interface tab, you have options such as toggle the help text on or off, change the default size and scale of the plugin window, show or hide the key switches from view, enable automatic unload with mixer fader, which will purge the signal if the mixer is all the way down. Here you can also change the way gain units are displayed. In the Audio tab, you have options such as changing the maximum voices playable, you can adjust your buffer and preload sizes, change the master tuning, change your pitch stretch quality and voices, enable memory mapping, and change the number of default stereo outputs available. In the Plugin tab, you can change the default preset that will load when the plugin is next opened. Once you've made all of your changes, you can click on Save. The plugin window is divided in a top half and a bottom half. Clicking on the inward-facing arrows in the top right will collapse the plugin window, leaving only the top half visible. In the top half, starting at the top, there is a drop-down menu that contains the presets available for this library. These can be filtered on the left using these group or instrument buttons, or you can apply stars to your favourites then filter via starred. Once you've located the patch you wish to use, click on the patch name and then on Load. Beneath the preset browser you will find two faders and a knob, sometimes referred to as an O. The leftmost fader is the expression control, which controls the level of the selected technique. The second fader is the dynamics fader. This adjusts the overall dynamics of the technique. Clicking on the center of the knob will reveal further controls available for the patch. In this library, the controls are reverb, release, and tightness. In the bottom half of the plugin window, in this first tab, are the techniques available. This is where you can select and change the technique being played. If you click on the pencil icon here to the right of the technique block, you will open the technique editor, where you can add or remove techniques for this patch as required. Once any changes have been made, these are applied by clicking on the Save button. On the top right side of the bottom half are the trigger settings. These allow you to change the trigger used to select or change the technique. By default, this is set to key switch. The key switches are displayed as green keys at the very bottom of the piano roll. As you can see here, the key switch for legato high is C-1, so hitting C-1 will change the technique being played to legato high. You can adjust the key switches on each technique here, or you can move the key switch block up or down using the keyboard shimmier here. The middle tab for the bottom half displays the signal mixer. This is where you can control the levels of the preset in each technique. You can turn on a signal by clicking the toggle button underneath the signal name. On the right-hand side of the signal mixer, you can adjust the close stereo width. This collapses a stereo instrument down and applies only to the close signals. The FX tab reveals the controls visible under the knob above. The reverb control controls the amount of reverb added. The release control changes the amount of release trigger you hear and applies only to long patches. And the tightness control cuts further into the note to make it tighter, but this may reduce realism. Once you have the patch set as needed, you can temporarily save these changes by clicking on the lock icon, which will lock out the settings to prevent any accidental changes from being made. At the very bottom of the plugin window is the piano roll. The illuminated keys show the playable range for the selected patch and technique. So that's your basic overview of the Heirloom plugin window.
Thanks for watching Spitfire Clips. Let us know if it was too long, too short, too fast or too slow in the comments down below. Hit like if we answered your question and subscribe for more clips, tips, tricks and exclusive Spitfire content.